Okay, we might get through this episode.
I hope that's the first audio clip.
I guess the race right now would be for Jordan or Mike after this episode.
Yeah.
Although maybe, I don't know, maybe Josh will be coming back on soon.
Him and Dan have a cool thing going on.
They do, actually.
Yeah. I don't think we can we talk about it yet?
I don't know. Why not?
I don't know either. I don't know. I don't know if it's a secret or not. I don't know if they
No, Josh was talking. I heard he did a live video of it yesterday.
Oh, okay, great.
So that was the first that I heard of it.
Media as quickly as I should with his stuff.
That's all right. I don't know. I guess we'll start with it as a quick promo for them. I don't know. Did you see what Josh was talking about yesterday?
You might be into it. Do you run?
Do I run?
Yeah.
Only when he has to.
When I have to. Yeah. I'm working on it.
So I think I listened to it briefly. So they're doing on November 30th. They're doing a trail run at Haroldtown, and they're gonna have a set whatever course, and you have to. Is that what it is? 2 or 3 kilometers that you have to do every half hour. So you would run it. And then I guess sort of like an every minute on the minute, but every half hour on that half hour. And I don't even know what that would be called.
And e-ha-ha.
Exactly. They should call it that. That would be good.
That would be great. I'm gonna suggest that.
Until you can't go, I guess. And they're
really just keep her hot.
Well, so it's an elimination race, is what he told me yesterday.
Oh.
So you're racing for your 2 kilometers, and then the last person gets eliminated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So every round someone will get eliminated, so it's competitive that way. So it's going to be Dan and Josh sprinting by the end of it. Although
That's
Peterborough's got some good runners, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd probably be eliminated on round 1 if I did it. So.
I said I'm interested, but I think I'll probably get a solid 4K in, and then that's it. At least with them.
I don't know if I'm that interested in doing it, but I'll think about it more.
You could film it. You could be there.
That's what I was thinking of more, so that would be fun to do a cool... that's what I'll probably be there for. I'll just do a cool... post-trailer kind of thing.
Perfect.
Anyway, instead of getting way off track, we've got Mike Doherty on the episode today. He's been on the FlowCast before. We talked about the flow of fighting, and it's actually still one of the most popular episodes. Really stoked about that one because everybody really enjoyed it. I've heard a lot of good feedback about it, and so welcome back on, Mike.
Thank you.
And so I guess we'll get right into the main event. You just came back from WAKO World Muay Thai Championships, World Amateur Championships, correct?
Yeah, it was this one wasn't Muay Thai, it was K1. So K1's kind of like Muay Thai, but it's more kickboxing without the clinch, and there was no elbows and stuff like that. But
okay.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. It was I'm fairly experienced for Canada. I've got over 40 fights, and but over there it's I was talking to a guy in the gym. He's just I didn't get that many fights this year. I only had 7 fights this year. And I'm like, how many actual fights do you have? He's like, 150.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, cool. Oh, sweet, man. How do you even get that?
Yeah.
With the big guys over there, right?
Yeah. So it was a pretty awesome experience that way to feel like I belonged at that level too, and I was able to hang in there and do well and stuff.
Yeah, because your fight, you had one fight over there, right? Mm-hmm. And it came down to a decision, which you lost, unfortunately.
Lost, yeah.
Sometimes,
decision.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. It was close. A lot of people were saying I won the fight, but not taking anything. I think I lost it. I don't not taking anything away from the other guy. And I think. maybe if it was a couple more rounds, I maybe would have won. But I lost like the game. So I think the biggest thing I took from that is the understanding of like how the fights are scored and what the judges are looking for, because in the end it's just a sport, right?
Yeah.
Even though there's like high emotions in fighting and stuff like that, it's just a sport like anything else. So.
Right. Yeah, it's super interesting. Like one of your teammates, Taylor, she's been coming in regularly for Normatec, and she was sort of
cool.
She gave me some of the updates because I don't know who she was in touch with, but like heard it a little bit more closely a couple weeks ago, around the week that the fights were happening. And was that last week or the week before?
Oh man, I
think it was 2 weeks ago now.
I've been eating donuts since then.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
She that's what she was saying too, is like that like how many reps they've put in, like the guys over in Europe. In a lot of these countries that were coming to this tournament were like had so many more fights that they take part in each year. And so it's really interesting, like just kind of from that, like where you're on the route to mastery, right?
And exactly, it was really cool because it was like it was like their job over there. They get paid and sponsored to go and stuff, and we kind of had to seek it out and stuff. Like I made these t-shirts and a bunch of awesome local businesses kind of supported that too.
Cool. Yeah.
And then like most of the people over there were fighting since they were like kids, right? And it was really cool to see like the way they warmed up, the way they fought. Like I took a lot from the experience for sure.
Cool.
That is cool. So, I don't know the fighting world well. I just find it inspirational. That's all I have for you. But is fighting bigger over there? Like, would you say in comparison to Canada, or is it just
that style of fighting for sure? Like Europe, like WAKO is one of the biggest like amateur striking arts or sanctioning bodies in I guess the striking world kind of thing. But there's like a European circuit where like even the coaches, for example, like the coaches of Team Russia, that's their like full-time job is like to coach Team Russia, right? Where over here we have like some amazing coaches too, and they do like such a great job. And the WAKO president was over there with us too for Canada. Cool. And but that's not their full-time job, right? Where it's like that's the only thing they're doing, right? They all have gyms of their own and stuff. They're all leading other things, right? So it's a little bit, I would say, a little bit more developed in that European circuit. But there's also the thing in Canada, like Canada's huge, so it's like Team Canada, there was people from BC, people from Alberta, Newfoundland, all over the place, right? And it's like, am I gonna go over there to train 1 hour and then come back, kind of thing? Like it's, you know what I mean? So whereas in Europe, it's a little bit, you can hop on like a train and go train with the next country, kind of thing, and
a lot easier.
It's a little closer that way, but
yeah, that's for sure. It's actually very similar, I think, in like the world of strongman too, right? It's much more. There are athletes that in Europe that are making a living off of being a professional strongman, whereas there's one guy in Canada. I don't even know if he's making a living off of it, but anyway, like it's the same sort of thing where everybody else has to have another job on top of it to pay the bills and all that. But I heard just before we got started here, you said you won't be going back. What's that all about?
I did. It was. I would go back to Worlds 100%, but I'm just hoping maybe it's not in Bosnia.
Okay.
Like it is definitely a nice place and stuff like that, like in some ways, but I was just not a fan of like they smoke everywhere kind of thing, right? So it's like even in the arena, I'm like, I'm like still working
that out of
past that. I'm like, because I'm never around that kind of stuff, right? So Yeah, it's different. It's different for sure.
Gotcha. It's interesting that. But you get to experience like a whole different culture and a whole different world from kind of that
did you
sense.
have time to explore it, or did you just
yeah, like after we had a little bit of time, we kind of wandered around like some markets and stuff like that, and yeah, not too much though.
Yeah.
Like it, I don't know. I didn't really know what there was to explore, but there was, I don't know, bullet holes in buildings and some of them, like you could see like where like, because there was like a civil war there or something like in the 90s, and yeah, like holes in buildings and stuff. It was pretty cool that way. But
interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just blanked on what I was gonna ask.
That's okay. I'm curious. In a way, it sounds like you kind of going there is like going to school for you, because there was just people who are a little bit more developed, and not saying you're not, but like they've got 150 fights or whatever a year. Did you have any, like, what were your main takeaways from, like, did you have interactions with people that you were able to kind of bring some stuff back with you?
Yeah, like, whenever I lose anything, like, it, like, motivates me so much more. So it's like, cool. I don't really see it as a loss then, because I always know something really good is going to come from it after that, right? But, like, I went in there, like, I don't go into things not thinking I can win it, you know? Like, I went in there, like, I worked hard, and, you know, like, the whole year I've been competing and stuff like that, right? So I was 5-0 this year, and then 5-1 after this, but yeah, no, it's all good, but yeah, no, I tried to train like the whole year kind of thing for it. So when I went in, I was like mentally, physically, technically prepared, all ready to go. And then yeah, no, when you lose, it's always like, oh, kind of wish I did that, you know, I could have done this better, right? But I think one of the biggest takeaways I took from it is you know, to play my game, you know, because although there is a rule set and stuff like that, I was too focused on the rule set where I was like, I know in a lot of times in my fights, like when I've lost, I know I've beaten myself in some way. I never like blame it on the other person or anything like that. Like, I've beaten myself in some way, like throughout training camp, throughout like the fight, whatever. And I realized, you know, like in that fight, like even in my head, I'm like volume, you know, like I was thinking like just get points, but I wasn't thinking how I normally strike, which is like blast the person, like throw power kind of thing, right? So, and that was actually what was scoring more points over the volume kind of thing. So I think it was you know, learning to understand those rules a little bit better, and just, you know, I get them now basically, so I go back to it again. Yeah.
Cool.
Now you said that like was it a bit of a challenge with the weight cut for this one, because you said, you know, you had to maintain that for a whole week essentially for the fights, whereas usually if it's like a quick water cut, you're back up to your normal weight really quickly because the fight's said and done and all that. Was it any different feeling that way?
A little bit, but like it was kind of good because I actually lost the weight, so I didn't feel like I had the same amount of power for a little while, which is something I need to work on. But yeah, I actually had to lose the weight, so it's like when I weighed in, I would have basically we got off the plane, I had to weigh in, so I couldn't eat on the plane or nothing. It was like I'm in the middle seat too, and these guys are eating like food beside me. I'm like, what the heck is this?
That's a test.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here.
At least it's not good food.
Trying to sleep. This guy's eating a cookie. But yeah, no, it was. I guess I've done the weight cut so many times though. It's just like kind of normal to me. But I just did it a little bit farther out where I actually had to lose that extra little bit that I usually cut in water, kind of thing. So,
right.
The last couple of weeks were a little rough, but other than that,
Yeah, just being a little more restrictive with your diet kind of thing. And
that's it. Yeah, celery diet.
Does flying mess up your, like, you gain water weight from that? I know a lot of people complain about that.
That's what they were saying, but I didn't actually. But yeah, I heard that's a thing though.
I mean, yeah, I've never I've heard that's a thing too. It's never impacted me for the flight. Like Calgary's not that far for like a competition flight. Mind you, I'm not cutting weight or anything, but even the thought of being, I don't know, like sort of out of balance with like dehydration or bloated from flying, like the pressure change and everything. But I haven't noticed it so much when traveling to Calgary, and I don't know if it's some people are probably more or less sensitive to it, because I've definitely heard of the power lifters or the strongmen that have like that they're wearing like the compression socks and everything on flights to combat that, which has never been a problem for me. But
I definitely swell up on the way back from like I remember from Thailand, like my ankles were like balloons like on the way back. I'm like,
cool.
Oh, yeah. So I learned not to just wear flip flops on the planes now.
Yeah. Give your feet some space.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I want to ask, do you have a question?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, I want to like go before the fight, and this might be something that was in the other episode. I haven't listened to it fully. But you said like you're prepared mentally, physically, emotionally. What does that look like for you? Like, how do you prepare yourself?
Yeah, and that's something that like at the start you can't really prepare for. Like that's there's a little bit of uncertainty in fighting where it's not like you're fully prepared ever, so it's like I would say like you could get to like even 95%, but there's that extra 5% that you're just like, oh no, in some fights you're more prepared than others and stuff like that. But I make sure. One thing I'm really adamant on is like keeping like a journal and tracking. Like I track like what I do for my activity kind of thing. I track my sleep now too.
Cool.
What else? Nutrition, like what I'm eating, and thoughts. So like that's one I'll do. I do specifically after training. So like what my feelings in training. What were my what was I thinking, like what was I like what was I focused on, what my focus centered around kind of thing, and then if I was aware of anything while I was training and stuff like that, that's one like I really like doing, just because it helps you key in on what almost your motivators are, and like be in that focused awareness state of mind, right? When you're, because you have to be really present as a fighter. Sure. Because when you get hit, you can like go off and be like, oh my God, I broke my nose, and like you got to draw yourself back because he's going to break it further if you, like if you don't, right? So, which is a weird thing to say, right? But it happens,
reality,
it's a reality. So you got to be able to draw yourself back no matter what happens, right? And not thinking too far ahead of like, I want to win this gold medal kind of thing, but that's all like training leading up to it. But I guess I do it like that sort of mindfulness practice like while I'm training at the same time, because then it has more effect, because while I'm doing it at the same time, I'll be able to do it in the ring then, right? So I'll be able to be mindful, like, in the ring, I guess. So if that makes sense. That's the mindset end of things, but I'm always tracking, like I have a certain amount of, like, training I do a week, strength and conditioning and stuff like that, and then, sparring and stuff.
It's interesting that you kind of do those metrics you evaluate after. Usually, like, you hear people talk about how they write before the training goes. So I'm kind of curious to know what kind of goes through your mind before the training. Are there ever days where you don't want to do it, or you feel less up to it. And actually, like, I'm not sure. I don't think I asked this last time, but how long have you been fighting for? Like, when did you get started?
I've been fighting for 13 years.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, around 13.
So you got started in like your mid-teens or whatever?
Yeah, like I think I was like 17.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Hold on, can you repeat the question again?
No worries. I threw a bunch of them there, so no worries. So most people talk about kind of writing down those like how you're feeling before training, but you're talking about kind of the reflection and how you felt after the training. But what goes through your mind like leading up to the training? Is there or how do you evaluate like how you're feeling, sort of going into it? Because some days obviously are a little bit higher or lower, and like I guess after 13 years it's sort of you get to that point where that it's your thing, so you're gonna do it anyway, but like what kind of goes through your mind before the training?
I try to be I like to be in an excited state of mind kind of thing, where I'm excited to train. Because if it's something like you're dreading all the time, it's probably not for you. Like it's not. Just don't do it. Like it's like if it's like years that's going on, it's like you've been doing that too long. Go do something else. So I'm pretty big on that. Is like if I don't want to do something, I'm not gonna do it. Like. Sometimes I don't cut my grass. I just don't want to do it. Like so, things like that. Yeah, I'm good now. It snowed. It's good. But like I guess the biggest thing where, like you said, like people write those things down before and after. Like I have a thing before as well. Like going into it, like what I'm. Sometimes I leave that, like if I'm training with my coach, like that's up to him, the before thing, and I'm just open, I'm just ready to go kind of thing, right?
Right.
But if it's like my training session that I set up, I'll have something before, just so I can just kind of go through the motions, right? And then after, I like to do it, like almost debrief of myself on it, because in fighting, debriefing is very important, just because it's a very hard sport, and you need to find the truth in the actual sport. So, like if one day I go into training and get the crap kicked out of me for 8 rounds straight or something like that in sparring, and then after I'm just like mentally beaten, if I do nothing about that afterwards, I'm just gonna. Some people attach that to who they are, right? Which that's not good at all, right? It's not that. There could be other factors, like it could be like maybe you just got 1 hour of sleep, maybe you just went to a sushi buffet like I did the other day and got beat up, So it's like those kind of things. You have to account those and find the reality of the results, and then through your performance, like I always try to enhance it and mimic previous good performances, right? Like especially with big events, like I'll just mimic those good performances all the way along, but I always have one thing that sets me above, that always is like something that I didn't expect in camp, and something that was like, okay, you never did that before. You know what I mean? You never did that before. And it's like, whoa, cool. I can't think of one off the top of my head, though.
But it's a confidence boost and like a self-esteem boost or whatever, as your identity as a fighter, right? That you kind of like those whether they're big or little wins, right? We were just talking about that with the milestone at Flow Spa, and like those things keep you going, right?
That's it, and it's recognizing it but not fixating on it, right? Where you're like you see those things, but you're not like, oh, I'm that, I'm good now. No, you can always get punched in the head, So, like, and then where you say like people do the before and after thing, like the reason why I kind of journal after is I spent a lot of time trying to figure out myself, and stuff like that, and I know I'm more of like a interpersonal learner, which is like I have to reflect on things a lot. So I do my reflection like while I'm almost doing things sometimes. So that's why I always kind of look like I've got like a busy look on my face kind of thing, you know, because it is, you know, but yeah. So I just kind of shape my training for that type of learning style, right? But like I guess the biggest thing I give to like for other people to figure that kind of thing out is like just know how you learn, right? And figure out what works for you and where you perform best, right?
Cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Very stoic response to it all, right? That's like all of the Stoics talk about that a lot, right? The whole self-reflection and don't get too big in your britches because you could get punched in the face again. It's like everything about that, it really reflects what we talked about a bit last time on the podcast, which is Stoicism, or the Stoics are a big learning source and even I guess sort of inspiration or whatever to you to the way you think. So that's cool stuff.
Yeah, and it's like they make comparisons to fighting a lot, so it really speaks to me in that way, I guess. So I can, not only do they make those like metaphors and stuff like that where they're comparing it to life and stuff, that I actually have the experience that I've felt it and I've been in there, and I can grow from those other things from the outside too. Yeah. Because actually one of the really cool things that, speaking of experience, that one of the Team Canada coaches said, he's like, you can go and experience something like this, but the experience doesn't actually matter. It's like, it's what you actually do with the experience that matters afterwards, right? Yeah. So it's like, what did I do when I got home? I'm like, I was training. I got back to training, it's like, I had someone ask me the other day, it was like, I wonder what you do during the day. Because I'm like shadow boxing in the mirror and stuff like that, like while they're asking me this, and like, do you just do this all day? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, all the time.
That's all right. Yeah. So you seem to, we talked about Stoicism a little bit, but also like there's a bit of Buddhism coming in, I would say. I don't know if that's something you study a bit, but just like that detachment. Like, was there a point in your fighting, like, have you always just been kind of detached in the sense that, like, and I don't mean that in the...
Yeah, no,
you're aloof, but like, you're not taking things personally, you're just using it as like material to grow from. Yeah. Was there a point when that like wasn't the case and then it was? Like, what flipped that script for you? Yeah, no,
there definitely was a moment in that it was, I think in like 2013 or 2014 that I literally like I just like took full responsibility of my situation, like wherever I was. Like I didn't like the job I was in. I didn't like a lot of things about my life at that time, and then I just like took full responsibility of everything kind of thing, and I was like, this is all on me. And then sorry, can you repeat the other part of the question again?
Yeah, if I remember it. Just the idea that like, I hear you talking and you're saying you're not taking all these, like, if you've lost, you didn't take it personally, that's a growth opportunity. Or you were saying like a lot of people, if they do something that in fighting at least, they do something that they're not proud of, they attach it to themselves. Yeah. So how did you get to that mindset of like being detached? Yeah.
It's like, because it doesn't make me feel good when I'm attached to it too, right? And it's like, and that's kind of the ultimate form of like selfishness if I like take offense to it, like I'm not a fighter, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that's who I am. No, I'm me, so it's like, I don't know how to put this into words really. Yes, I fight. That's something I do. Yeah. I coach. That's something I do. I run a business. That's something I do. Those are three things I do, but that's not me. Like, I'm different from those things. So, it's just, I guess learning to respond to stimulus kind of thing. So, and like I had some big like stimulus like in like 2013, 2014, it was around there, right? And that's where I decided to take responsibility of that and learn from that. And I knew that I heard a quote too. It was like if you read like a book a week in your field, within the next 5 years, you'll be within the top 10% of experts in your field kind of thing. So then I started doing that, right? Where I started reading all these books, and I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to realize the results are paying off, right? So it's like, you can learn any skill you need to learn, right? It's just like, are you willing to put in the work to do that, right? So I just started doing that, and like when I used to, you know, be identified with being a fighter and stuff like that. Like that was in the start of my career, and like I remember that was because I was coming off, like in 2013, I was coming off a 5-fight losing streak, right? And I'm like, I didn't like my job, all these things like all at once, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, something needs to change, man. And I took like a year and just worked on like the mindset of things, and then, you know, I've only lost twice since then, and it's been to like I lost the Canadian championships in Calgary, and then that Worlds like a couple weeks ago.
Was it to a decision both times?
Yeah, both times decision. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. For me, it's really confirming to see that it's all like I'm going on the right path, where I'm keeping
Momentum going,
that momentum, that winning momentum, right? Because there's, you know, a lot of people will say like, oh, like he's strict in his methods or whatever, and yeah, I definitely am, you know, but that's because there's a science to winning, there's a science to success. Like, I shouldn't even say winning, because I don't like to put like that outcome. That sometimes when you fixate on the outcome, it messes things up. It keeps you out of the present. But there is a science to success, though, a system to fighting. So I just try to play the game as best I know, right?
Cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. It resonates a lot with, I know sort of after the last show we were briefly talking about Tony Robbins, and I just saw him live last week.
Oh man,
it was a really cool experience. I sort of told that in the last podcast. I kind of did like a debrief of that, because I wanted to retain that information as much as possible. But I think the big one you said is like getting into that energized state before going into training, or that and actually like you can learn it all, but like actually applying it. Those were like the two big takeaways, because, you know, there were 9,000 people in this room, and we've talked about it a couple of times now, because I keep questioning, or it just keeps going through my head, this idea of how many of those people are actually going to make a big change, because it was called the Power of Success seminar, right? But how many are actually going to act on it? And like that's like the magic part, right? It's like you got to act on it. You can learn it all, but you've got to act on it. And I'm pretty sure, have you read like Awaken the Giant Within?
I have. I've read a bit of it. I'm weird reading books.
Okay.
Like always like picking pages out.
That's cool. But
I have like 7 half-finished books on my nightstand.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's all good. Like as long as you're taking something away from it, even a page a day is making a difference. But I realized everything that Tony talked about, or even like all the speakers on stage, you could get it all from whatever book that they've written before. So it's like that energy was the big difference, because you're seeing them on stage in their element, like with that energy. But it's so important to check your energy levels before acting on even like whatever it is you're passionate or trying to work towards too. So that's really cool that you made that point.
Yeah, and like you said, you can get the same knowledge from it, like you're experiencing it, but actually doing it is a different experience, because you actually went to the thing and you actually did it, right? So that's what I always say with fighting is like, when you're training, there's a knowledge portion. You know, you're working on the knowledge. You're you know, thinking about throwing your punch as straight as you can, but when you're sparring, you gotta forget it all. You know, so I'm like, now forget it all and just do it.
Yeah.
You know, where you have to just be and just like do the thing instead of like, you know, focusing so much on, you know, oh, that one was wrong, whatever, you know, and noticing that much. So you have to have like focused awareness, yes, but I'm not like fixated on anything. I'm just like kind of being able to make choices in the moment.
Yeah, it's putting in those reps to like those reps that you know the idea of perfect practice makes perfect, not or whatever, right? So even like the visualization aspect of it, like you're talking about like the shadow boxing, you're visualizing it all, and you know like what the correct movement is, which is like is stage 1 of mastery, right? Is the knowing it, like the knowledge, and then stage 2 they say is like the emotional. So I guess with like fighting, it would be like the feeling it, like you know that impact hit home, right?
Yeah.
And then stage 3 is ingraining the physical practice. So that's where it becomes that like nervous system reaction, right? Like you don't have to think about it. It's the unconscious. Yeah, the pattern's been ingrained. So it's very cool to hear that actually, you know, in your terms with fighting and how it actually comes about and works after so many years of training.
You know what, like, and I that's why I believe fighting's so good, because it's like what you normally steers people off from those actual new like neural patterns is like speed bumps, right? Like where they'll have that same negative pattern that like throws them off, right? But with fighting, you're trained to go through that. Fighting, you're trained to like, you have to block out that external thing, right? So it's just, I don't know, learning to block out the pain of the reaction to, because you're going towards something else, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's like, solid focus, which I'm sure translates to other areas of your life too. Reminds me of Alex Honnold in Free Solo. We've talked about this a million times. Have you seen that one?
No.
Rock climbing movie. He climbs harness
I've
free
seen.
up
I haven't watched it, but yeah.
It's fun. I watched it the other day.
Cool.
I bought it off YouTube because I was like, I gotta see this, and you can't find it anywhere else.
I think it's well worth watching.
I liked it.
I actually, one of the first FlowCast episodes was me doing like a recap of it, because I went to see it with Dan in Toronto.
Yeah, but he just, there's a point where there's a pitch on the wall that he had a challenge. Like, it was just, if he got in his head, that was definitely the moment he was going to fall to his death. And so he just told himself, like, he journals as well and does that, like, checking in and scientifically maps it all out and memorizes the wall so that his body just knows what to do. So he can get out of his headspace, and he just wrote Autopilot. Which is interesting.
That's actually so, like I go down to like, even like I knew what the arena looked like before I even went to it, right? So like, you got the internet, so I'm like, I do all that kind of stuff. I walk myself through it mentally, kind of thing, before like going into it. Like, I think though there's a point to that. Like, I don't think you should do that every day. You know, like I did it 3 times to a training camp. I think
that can create anxiety if you're not careful, right?
Too far ahead. Right? Just learning to bring it back balanced, right? Where you're just, you know, you're just, you know those things, but you're not, again, fixated on those things, right?
I think I agree. I do the exact same thing before a strongman competition.
Cool. And
I usually wait until the last week to start doing that.
Same.
And another interesting thing with the visualization that I've heard from Michael Gervais, who's the sports psychologist for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's got a really awesome podcast called Finding Mastery, is actually rehearsing the failures. So he gets his athletes to rehearse, I think, about like 80% success rate and then 20% failure rate, and so that you actually go through what's going to happen if you do get punched in the face, instead of it always being, you know, crisp, clean, everything goes perfectly. Like, how are you going to visualize yourself getting back up after something goes wrong and so that's something I'm starting to apply for myself as well.
That's good.
It's because it's interesting, and I think it's important. Like that's like he's got right now the Seahawks are one of the best teams in the NFL, and like I like seeing their style because I know that this really like talented psychologist is behind a lot of what's going on with them.
Interesting.
It's really
that was
cool.
something that I know you watch Tom Bilyeu a lot, or at least I've seen your
Yeah.
this is
He's the
Instagram
man.
where like what is that?
Instagram.
But that Ryan Holiday episode where they were talking about
good,
yeah. What are they talking about? So just like Tom's motivation and where he finds it, and like he's like 80% of the time like I'm good to go and I'm ready to go and I'm really like inspired and passionate about what I'm doing, and then there's that 20% of the time where I'm just like I want to lay on the couch and eat potato chips and like do nothing. So they're talking about how they navigate that, and this is something I actually want to talk to you about because I'm curious just due to fighting stereotypes and what have you. But he was talking about how he actually uses a little bit of aggression to get him going. But he said this is like not for people who don't understand how to navigate their aggression, but he's got a list of like people who told him he never could do it. And those days that he's not feeling like doing it, he'll pull that out and be like, no, I'm doing this. And then that little bit of, I don't know how to word this without swearing, but that little bit of aggression of like...
You can swear.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like those people where it's just like, fuck you, like don't say that to me.
Got myself a few times too.
Yeah. And that powers him as long as he doesn't use that aggression to like fly off the handle. He just kind of uses it as just like a way, like he needs to prove to himself that he can still do it. Is that something that kind of when you get knocked down in fighting, do you get back up with that, or is there any aggression in there? Is it all zen and peace? Or like what's the, because I don't know.
Definitely
like obviously there's physical impact,
but I kind of stomach it, so it's like what I mean by that is like I don't put that aggression out like onto other people too. Is like I almost put it onto myself where it's like what are you doing? you know, like I'll literally talk to myself like that in there. I'm like, what do you, like slip a punch, you know, like you know, like that, right? And I'll get like aggressive, I guess, with myself kind of thing to like motivate myself. But I'll be like, you're not letting this guy beat you kind of thing, or something like that, right? But like I guess in training and stuff like that, I don't really draw that out like that.
You wouldn't really need to in training, right?
Yeah, no, like I don't really draw that out. That's really, I only draw that out if I'm getting beaten up.
Right.
You know, like I never really use that much. Usually my motivators are literally just like, you know, people like this that help get me there, you know. And I don't want to like, you know, even my nephews and niece there, like I don't, like I always think like, I'm like, imagine what they could do if I, like, you know, they're watching me do this kind of thing, how it's going to inspire them. So that kind of motivates me a little bit more like long term than just, I think aggression's more bursts, you know, and that's only usually when I'm getting beaten up that I start to use that kind of thing. And
that's pretty much what Tom was saying too. It's like, don't drive your life off of that because you're going to be a miserable, angry person.
Yeah.
But it's like, it helps in a pinch if you just need that extra like burst of energy that you...
100%.
Like as long as, and this is disclaimer to anyone listening, like as long as you know how to regulate your own aggression and not, like you said, put it on other people or fly off the handle with it. Or
yeah, because you can get, even in fighting, like if you're using it for fighting, which I don't suggest.
It's dangerous.
It's like if you get too over emotional in fighting, then you can waste energy too, and you can expend too much energy, right? So it's, you know, like to get yourself back in that winning momentum, I always use it for. So like I'll use it consciously where I get myself back in my winning momentum, and then I bring myself back to my game, and I start playing my game again, right? Where it's, I used to fight angry and just fight the whole fight like that, and then after I'd be like, oh my god, I'm so tired right now. You know, but I guess learned a better way to like use my energy in the right way. Like I said, that there's a system to success, right? So
Yeah.
use it in the right way, and you don't have to be dead after the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think one final question that segues off of what we were just talking about with Ryan Holiday, and he's the modern day Stoic king. He is the man. And I happened to flip to a page in Stillness is the Key yesterday, just because I know Stoicism's near and dear to your heart, and it was on the idea of choosing virtue, and a lot of the Stoics in this particular chapter and this particular idea is something Marcus Aurelius has with what are epithets, so these adjectives or things that describe your sort of core values. And are there any epithets that you live by, like core values? And I think the main one that Marcus Aurelius and Ryan Holiday was sort of getting out of this chapter was virtue. But are there any things that just sort of dictate your life like that?
There's definitely some. But this is actually really funny that you say that, because I was actually going to say this because I was looking back through the pictures on my computer. I was thinking about it when you were working with your computer there. I was looking back through the pictures of my computer the other day, and I'm literally since I've opened the gym, I've had the same core beliefs and same values I've put into it. I've put into every single person that's been through the gym. I've put my heart into it. You know what I mean? What confuses people is I've changed the how I'm doing it and the what I'm doing many times. So it's he's a lot of time I've heard he's changed things up. I'm no. I've always kept the same why I'm doing it, and it's just literally just be a better person. It's not that there's anything wrong with you right now. It's bringing yourself back to you, but being a good person for the community in general kind of thing, and doing right. If there's anything I kind of live by, it's that. So, and I look back at all those pictures and I'm I'm happy with it, because I could see that all the way through those consistent years since I've been open, I've kept that same thing. I haven't veered off of that thing. But I have veered off of, how I speak, the methods that I teach, or, even what I do sometimes, I've definitely veered off that because I figured out things that work better.
Cool.
And just kind of built off that as I went. But yeah, I think the why you do things is very important. Mm-hmm. And being a good person of virtue. And it's just, I think that's a thing people should study, that's why I like to read Stoicism, is because it's the ultimate form of being a good person. And I like to study those things because I don't know if I am or not, I don't know if I am all the time. So I like those books to catch myself on my crap. So I'm just oh man, you're being a dick here. You didn't even know, I'm oh, so I read these books. So I'm okay, I'll catch that next time, and it helps me grow, I guess, as a person that way. But if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. We're coming up on time. Everything's sort of waking up around here, and you got to get to training.
Yes.
So hopefully that fired you up for the day. And thanks for being back on, Mike. And I'm sure we'll see you again some other time for some more Stoic
flow.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'll shake your hand.
There we go.